It was a bright and sunny Saturday morning in Oakwood Heights. This was a small, quiet neighborhood where nothing exciting ever seemed to happen. The houses sat in neat rows, the grass was always trimmed, and the birds chirped like they were in a happy little song. Everyone thought it was just another boring day. Or so they believed. But something wild was about to shake things up, and it all started with a guy named Jake Larson. Jake was a regular dude. Not too tall, not too short, with messy brown hair and a big smile. He had just moved into his new house about a month ago. It was a cute little place with a red door and a tiny porch. Jake was super excited because, for the first time ever, he had a home that was all his own. He'd spent weeks unpacking boxes, hanging up pictures, and making it feel like his special spot. He even put up some shiny new house numbers on his mailbox, big, silver ones that sparkled in the sun. To Jake, they looked awesome. He thought they made his house stand out in a cool way. But not everyone was happy about Jake's new house or those shiny numbers. Enter Karen Miller. Karen was the boss of the Homeowners Association, or HOA for short. The HOA was a group of people who made rules for the neighborhood, like how tall your grass could grow or what color your fence could be. Karen loved being in charge. She walked around like she owned the whole place, always watching everyone through her curtains. If you left a bike on your lawn or painted your mailbox a weird color, Karen would know. And she'd make sure you heard about it. Karen wasn't like most neighbors. She didn't wave hello or bring cookies to new people. Nope. She was the kind of person who'd knock on your door just to tell you your trash can was 2 inches too close to the street. Most folks in Oakwood Heights just rolled their eyes and tried to stay out of her way. Jake, though. He didn't know much about Karen yet. When he moved in, he saw her staring from her window across the street, but he didn't think it was a big deal. He figured she was just nosy. Oh boy, was he wrong. That was his first mistake. Because Karen wasn't just nosy, she was about to turn his quiet little life into a total mess. See, Jake thought he could just settle in and enjoy his new house. He'd wake up on weekends, sip some coffee on his porch, and maybe mow the lawn if he felt like it. He wasn't looking for trouble. He didn't want to fight with anyone. All he wanted was to relax and feel at home. But Karen had other plans. She didn't like Jake's shiny house numbers one bit. To her, they were too fancy, too bright, too different. And Karen? She hated different. She liked everything to be the same, boring and plain. Those sparkly numbers on Jake's mailbox? They were like a big, flashing sign that said, "I'm new here, and I'm doing things my way." And that made Karen mad. Really mad. Now, Jake didn't know it yet, but Karen wasn't just some grumpy lady who complained a lot. She had a secret, something big and sneaky that nobody in Oakwood Heights had figured out. She acted like she was the queen of the neighborhood, but there was more to her story. Something strange was bubbling under the surface, and Jake's shiny numbers were about to set it all off. It was like dropping a tiny pebble into a pond and watching giant waves crash out. That's how this whole crazy adventure started, with a guy, a house, and some numbers that were just too cool for Karen to handle. Before we go any further, let's have some fun. I've got a question for you. What's the wildest thing a neighbor has ever complained about to you? Maybe they didn't like your dog barking or thought your Halloween decorations were too spooky. Whatever it is, I'd love to hear it. Drop your answer in the comments below, because I bet you've got some funny stories. And if you like tales like this where regular days turn into big surprises, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. Trust me, you're gonna want to stick around. This story? It's about to get super nuts. Picture this: Jake's just chilling, thinking life is good. He's got his coffee, his cozy house, and those shiny numbers gleaming in the sunlight. He's not hurting anyone. He's not breaking any big rules. He's just a guy trying to enjoy his new start. But across the street, Karen's already plotting. She's standing by her window, squinting at those numbers like they're the worst thing she's ever seen. Her lips are pressed tight, and her hands are on her hips. She's decided Jake's mailbox is a problem she's going to fix. And when Karen decides something, she doesn't mess around. Jake had no clue what was coming. He didn't know that this sunny Saturday was about to turn into the weirdest day of his life. He didn't know that Karen was about to do something so wild, it'd make the whole neighborhood talk for weeks. All because of some silly house numbers. It's funny when you think about it, something so small, like a few shiny digits, could start such a huge mess. But that's how the best stories begin, right? With something tiny that grows into something huge. So, there's Jake, happy as can be, and there's Karen, ready to stir up trouble. Two totally different people, living just a few steps apart, about to crash into each other in the craziest way. Jake thought he'd moved into a peaceful little spot. He thought he could just kick back and enjoy his new house. But peace? That wasn't on Karen's list. She was like a storm cloud rolling in, ready to rain all over Jake's sunny day. And the wildest part? This wasn't just about house numbers. Nope. There was something bigger hiding behind Karen's grumpy face, something Jake and everyone else were about to find out. What do you think's gonna happen next? Will Karen just complain and go away? Or is she about to do something totally bonkers? Hang tight, because this story's only getting started. Those shiny numbers? They're the spark. And Karen? She's the match about to light everything up. Let's see where this wild ride takes us. It all started with those shiny house numbers. Jake had put them up on his mailbox a few days ago. They weren't super fancy or anything, just smooth, silver digits that sparkled when the sun hit them. He liked how they looked. To him, they were cool and made his new house feel special. He'd stand on his porch, sip his coffee, and smile at how nice they shined. It was a little thing, but it made him happy. Jake didn't think anyone would care about some numbers. Boy, was he wrong. Across the street, Karen Miller was watching. She'd been keeping an eye on Jake ever since he moved in. Karen was the boss of the HOA, the Homeowners Association. That meant she got to tell people what they could and couldn't do in the neighborhood. She loved rules. She loved telling people to follow them even more. And those shiny numbers on Jake's mailbox? They rubbed her the wrong way. Big time. To Karen, they weren't just numbers. They were trouble. They were too bright, too different, too fancy. And fancy wasn't allowed in her perfect little world. That afternoon, the sun was still high in the sky, and Jake was outside watering his flowers. He was humming a little tune, enjoying the warm day, when Karen came marching over. She didn't walk slow or calm like a normal person. Nope. She stormed across the street like an angry bull. Her arms were crossed tight over her chest, and her face was all scrunched up. She looked at Jake like he'd done something terrible, like he'd painted his whole house bright neon pink or set off fireworks in the yard. But all he'd done was put up some shiny numbers. Jake, she barked, stopping right in front of him. Her voice was loud and sharp, like a teacher yelling at a kid who forgot their homework. Jake turned off the hose and looked up, surprised. "What's wrong?" he asked, wiping his hands on his jeans. Karen pointed at the mailbox like it was a monster. "Those numbers," she snapped. "They're too fancy. They're against HOA rules." Jake blinked. He wasn't sure he heard her right. Too fancy? Rules? What was she talking about? "They're just numbers," he said, trying not to laugh. "They look nice." But Karen didn't think it was funny. Her eyes got narrow, and her lips pressed into a thin, mad line. "No," she said, shaking her head. "They're not allowed. You've got until tomorrow to take them down, or I'm calling the cops." Jake stared at her. Cops? For house numbers? That sounded so silly, he couldn't help it. He laughed. A big, loud laugh right in her face. "Yeah, right," he said, waving his hand like it was a joke. "Good one, Karen." But Karen didn't laugh back. Her face turned red, like a tomato about to pop. She didn't say another word. She just huffed like a dragon, puffing out smoke, and spun around. Then she stomped back to her house, her shoe slapping the pavement hard with every step. Jake watched her go, still chuckling. He figured she was just mad and would get over it. Maybe she'd had a bad day or didn't like the sun in her eyes. He shrugged, turned the hose back on, and kept watering his flowers. No big deal, right? Wrong. So wrong. Karen wasn't kidding. She wasn't just some grumpy lady who liked to complain. When she got back to her house, she didn't sit down to cool off or watch TV. Nope. She grabbed her phone off the kitchen counter and started dialing. Her fingers punched the numbers fast, like she couldn't wait to tattle on Jake. She was serious. She was really going to call the police. over some shiny house numbers. Jake had no idea what she was up to. He was inside now, kicking off his shoes and grabbing a soda from the fridge, thinking the whole thing was done. But Karen? She was just getting started. She paced around her living room, the phone pressed to her ear, waiting for someone to pick up. Her voice was loud when she finally spoke. Hello? Yes, this is Karen Miller from Oakwood Heights. I need the police right away. There's a problem with my neighbor. She sounded so serious, like Jake had done something really bad. But all he'd done was put up some numbers she didn't like. It was crazy. Back at his house, Jake plopped onto his couch and turned on the TV. He was flipping through channels, totally relaxed. He thought Karen was all talk. He figured she'd yell a little, then forget about it. That's what most people do when they get mad about something small. They huff and puff, then move on. But Karen wasn't most people. She was different. And not in a good way. Little did Jake know, she wasn't just a nosy neighbor with too much time on her hands. She had a secret, a big, sneaky secret that was hiding behind her grumpy face and loud voice. That secret was like a bomb waiting to go off. Jake's shiny numbers. They were the spark that lit the fuse. He didn't know it yet, but his quiet life was about to get flipped upside down. Karen wasn't just mad about the numbers. She was mad because they made her feel like she wasn't in control. And control was everything to her. She'd spent years bossing people around, making them follow her rules. Jake's mailbox was like a big nope to all that. It was a tiny thing, but to Karen, it was a war. Jake didn't see it coming. He didn't know that Karen's phone call was going to change everything. He didn't know that her secret was about to spill out and make his sunny Saturday into something wild. He just sat there, sipping his soda, watching a cartoon dog chase a cat on TV. He thought the worst was over. But it wasn't. It was just beginning. Karen's voice on the phone was sharp and angry, and the person on the other end was listening. She was setting something big in motion, something Jake couldn't even imagine. The tension was building, like clouds piling up before a storm. Jake was happy and clueless, while Karen was plotting and steaming. Two totally different people, stuck in the same neighborhood, about to crash into each other. Those shiny numbers weren't just decoration anymore, they were trouble. Big trouble. And Karen? She was ready to make sure Jake paid for it. But what she didn't know was that her plan was going to backfire. Her secret was waiting in the shadows, ready to jump out and surprise everyone. The next morning started like any other for Jake. The sun was peeking through his curtains, birds were chirping outside, and he rolled out of bed with a big yawn. He shuffled to the kitchen in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes, ready to make some coffee. Everything felt normal until he heard it. Sirens. Loud, wailing sirens that made his heart jump. Yep, real police sirens. Jake froze, coffee mug in hand, and thought, what's going on? He ran to the window and peeked out, pulling the curtain just enough to see. There it was, a police car, parked right in front of his house. Its red and blue lights flashed bright, lighting up the quiet street. Jake's eyes got wide. He couldn't believe it. Then he saw her, Karen. She was standing on her lawn across the street, pointing at his mailbox like it was some kind of monster. Her arm jabbed the air over and over, and her face was all twisted up with anger. Two police officers climbed out of the car. They looked a little confused, scratching their heads as they walked toward her. Jake just stood there, staring. Was this really happening? He grabbed his coffee mug, still empty, and stepped out onto his porch. The cool morning air hit his face, but he barely noticed. He was too busy trying not to laugh. Karen was yelling now, her voice so loud it bounced off the houses. Officers, she shrieked, waving her hands like a crazy person. Those numbers are a violation. They're too shiny. They're distracting drivers. The two cops turned to look at Jake's mailbox. Those silver numbers gleamed in the sunlight, sparkling like little stars. To Jake, they were awesome. To Karen, they were a crime. The officers didn't seem to know what to think. One of them, a tall guy with a friendly face, walked over to Jake. His badge said Officer Daniels. He tipped his hat a little and said, "Sir, we got a call about, fancy house numbers." His voice sounded unsure, like he wasn't even sure why he was there. Jake couldn't help it, he grinned big. "Guess I'm a rebel now," he said, taking a sip of his imaginary coffee. Oops, the mug was still empty. Officer Daniels smirked, like he thought it was funny too. But Karen? She wasn't laughing. Not even close. She kept going, her voice getting louder and her face turning redder by the second. They're dangerous, she shouted. People can't drive right because of them. They're against the rules. She stomped her foot, like a kid throwing a tantrum. The second officer, a shorter guy with dark hair, just stood there, watching her. He didn't say much, but his eyes were sharp, like he was studying her. Jake leaned against his porch railing, shaking his head. This was nuts. Cops showing up over some shiny numbers? It felt like a silly dream. But it wasn't a dream. It was real. And it was getting weirder. Officer Daniels scratched his head again and looked back at the mailbox. They don't look that bad to me, he muttered. Jake nodded. Right. They're just numbers, he said. Karen heard him and spun around, glaring like she could shoot lasers from her eyes. Just numbers, she yelled. They're ruining this neighborhood. She kept ranting, listing all the ways Jake's mailbox was the worst thing ever. Too bright. Too big. Too fancy. The cops listened, but they didn't look too happy about it. Jake sipped his empty mug again and watched the show. He thought Karen would tire herself out soon. She had to, right? Nobody could yell that much without stopping. But what Jake didn't know was that this wasn't just about the numbers. Oh no. Something bigger was hiding under all her shouting. Karen wasn't just a grumpy neighbor who hated shiny things. She had a secret, a sneaky, tricky secret that was starting to peek out, little by little. The second officer, the quiet one, kept his eyes on Karen. He hadn't said a word yet, but he was paying close attention. His name was Officer Lopez, though Jake didn't know that yet. Lopez wasn't like Daniels. He wasn't confused or joking around. He was watching Karen like a hawk watches a mouse. Every time she yelled, he tilted his head a tiny bit, like he was putting puzzle pieces together in his mind. Jake didn't notice. He was too busy giggling at how ridiculous this all was. Karen's voice was getting hoarse now, but she didn't stop. I told him to take them down, she said to the cops. I warned him yesterday. He didn't listen. Officer Daniels sighed and looked at Jake. Did she tell you that? He asked. Jake nodded. Yep. Said she'd call you guys if I didn't. I didn't think she'd really do it. Daniels chuckled. Guess she meant it, he said. Jake laughed too. Guess so. They were both smiling now, like they were in on the same joke. But Karen didn't like that. Not one bit. She stomped closer to the cops, her hands on her hips. This isn't funny, she snapped. He's breaking the rules. You need to do something. Officer Lopez finally moved. He stepped forward, just a little, and looked at her. His face was calm, but his eyes were serious. Ma'am, he said, his voice low and steady, what rule exactly are these numbers breaking? Karen blinked, like she wasn't expecting that question. The HOA rules, she said. They're too fancy. Lopez nodded slowly, like he was thinking hard. Was all he said. Jake didn't know it yet, but that was a clue. A tiny hint that something big was coming. Officer Lopez wasn't just there by accident. He wasn't just some random cop who showed up for a silly call. He was different. And Karen? She was starting to sweat. Not because it was hot outside, but because she was nervous. Deep down, she knew she'd made a mistake. Calling the cops was supposed to scare Jake, not bring trouble her way. But trouble was creeping closer, and she didn't even see it yet. The air felt thicker now, like something was about to happen. Jake leaned on his porch, still grinning, thinking this was the funniest thing ever. Karen kept yelling, her words tumbling out faster and faster. Officer Daniels tried to calm her down, saying, Ma'am, let's take it easy. But she wouldn't. She was digging a hole, a big, deep hole she couldn't climb out of. And Officer Lopez? He just watched, waiting. He knew something Jake didn't. He knew something Karen didn't want anyone to know. The shiny numbers sparkled in the sun, catching everyone's eye. They were small, but they were starting a big mess. Jake thought it was all a joke. Karen thought she was winning. But the truth? It was sneaking up on both of them. Little hints were dropping like Lopez's sharp eyes and Karen's shaky voice. Something wild was about to burst out, and it was all because of that mailbox. The day wasn't over yet, and the real surprise was still hiding, ready to jump. Things were getting loud on Jake's street. Karen was in the middle of her biggest yell yet, her voice screeching like a car braking hard. She was pointing at Jake's shiny mailbox numbers, telling the cops how awful they were. Her face was red, her hands were waving, and she looked like she wouldn't stop anytime soon. Officer Daniels was trying to calm her down, saying, "Ma'am, let's talk this out," but she wasn't listening. She was too busy shouting about rules and how Jake was ruining everything. Then, something changed. The second cop, Officer Lopez, stepped forward. He'd been super quiet this whole time, just standing there, watching Karen with a funny look on his face. His eyes were sharp, like he could see right through her. He hadn't said much, just a little hum earlier that made Jake wonder. But now, he moved closer, his boots tapping the ground soft and slow. Everyone turned to look at him. Even Karen stopped yelling for a second, surprised he was finally doing something. Lopez looked right at her, his face calm but serious. "Ma'am," he said in a low voice, "you said you're Karen Miller, head of the HOA." His words were simple, but they felt heavy, like they meant more than they sounded. Karen puffed up her chest, proud as could be. She nodded fast. "That's right," she said, sticking her chin out. "I'm Karen Miller. I keep this neighborhood in line." She smiled a little, like she thought Lopez was about to agree with her. She was so sure she was the boss here. But Lopez didn't smile back. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen a couple times, then turned it around so Karen could see. "So," he said, his voice still quiet, "you're also Karen Miller, wanted for faking HOA fines and pocketing the cash." He held the phone up high. On the screen was a picture of Karen. It looked just like her, with the same curly hair and grumpy face. Under the picture were big words, "Wanted for fraud." The air went quiet. Super quiet. Like someone hit a mute button on the whole world. No birds chirping, no wind blowing, nothing. Jake's jaw dropped so low it almost hit the porch floor. His eyes got huge, and he forgot all about his empty coffee mug still in his hand. Karen's face? It turned white as a ghost. 1 second she was red and yelling, and now she looked like she'd seen a monster. Her mouth opened, then closed, like a fish out of water. She didn't know what to say. Jake couldn't believe it. Neither could Officer Daniels, who turned to Lopez with a "what" look on his face. But Lopez stayed calm. He put his phone back in his pocket and kept staring at Karen. "Well," he asked. "Is that you?" Karen shook her head fast, her curls bouncing. "No. That's not me." "You've got the wrong person," she said, her voice all shaky now. "But nobody bought it?" The picture was too perfect. It was her, 100% her. Here's the big twist, Officer Lopez wasn't just any cop. Nope. He was part of a special team, a group of police who hunted down sneaky people doing bad things. They'd been watching Karen for months. Months. Turns out, she wasn't just a grumpy lady who liked rules. She was a scammer. For years, she'd been making up fake HOA rules like your grass is too long or your mailbox is too ugly and charging people money to fix them. But the money didn't go to the HOA. Oh no. It went straight into Karen's pocket. She'd been stealing from her neighbors, bit by bit, and nobody knew. Those shiny numbers on Jake's mailbox? They were just her latest trick. She didn't really care if they were fancy or shiny or whatever. She just wanted an excuse to boss Jake around and maybe squeeze some cash out of him. "Pay me $50, or I'll report you." That's what she'd done to tons of people. But this time, she messed up big. Calling the cops was her dumbest move yet. Why? Because Lopez and his team were already onto her. They'd been waiting for her to slip, and that 911 call about fancy numbers was the slip they needed. Jake stood there, still shocked, piecing it all together. He thought Karen was just annoying. He didn't know she was a crook. Officer Daniels looked surprised too, but he nodded at Lopez like, "Okay, you got this." Lopez stepped closer to Karen, his hands resting on his belt. "We've got proof," he said. "Fines you collected, bank records, complaints from neighbors. It's all there. Karen's eyes darted around, like she was looking for a way to run. But there was nowhere to go. The cops were right in front of her, and Jake was watching from the porch. Her big plan was falling apart. She thought she could scare Jake with the police and keep her sneaky game going. But instead, she brought the one cop who knew everything. Lopez had been quiet all morning, letting her dig her own hole. Every time she yelled, every time she pointed at the mailbox, she made it worse for herself. And now, the truth was out. The whole neighborhood was about to find out who Karen really was, not a bossy HOA queen, but a thief who'd been tricking them all. Karen tried to talk again. "This is a mistake," she said, her voice high and squeaky. "I didn't do anything wrong." But Lopez shook his head. "Tell that to the judge," he said. He pulled out a pair of shiny handcuffs from his belt. The metal clicked as he opened them, and Karen's face went even whiter. Jake couldn't help it, he let out a little whoa, under his breath. This was wild. 1 minute, Karen was yelling about his mailbox, and now she was about to get arrested? The shiny numbers on Jake's mailbox sparkled in the sun, looking prettier than ever. They weren't just numbers anymore, they were the thing that tripped Karen up. She'd picked the wrong guy to mess with, and the wrong day to call the cops. Lopez had been waiting for this moment. His team had been tracking her, collecting clues, talking to people she'd scammed. And that 911 call? It was like ringing a bell to say, "Come get me." She didn't know it, but she'd handed herself right to them. The street was still quiet, everyone holding their breath. Jake watched, amazed. Karen's big, loud world was crashing down, all because of some silly numbers. Lopez stood tall, ready to finish what she'd started. Daniel stepped up too, nodding at his partner. They were a team, and they had her. Karen's scam was done. The big reveal was here, and it was better than any movie Jake had ever seen. The truth was out, and there was no hiding it now. The big moment was over, and things were finally calming down. Officer Lopez had just dropped the huge surprise Karen was a scammer. Now, it was time to wrap it all up. Lopez held the shiny handcuffs tight around Karen's wrists. They clicked loud as they locked, and her face looked like she'd eaten a sour lemon. Officer Daniels stood next to him, trying hard not to laugh. He couldn't hide his big grin. "You're under arrest," Lopez said, his voice strong and clear. "For fraud and for wasting the police's time with that silly call." Karen didn't like that one bit. She wiggled and squirmed, her voice all high and mad. "This is outrageous," she yelled. "I'm protecting the neighborhood. You can't do this." But nobody listened. Not the cops, not Jake, not even the neighbors peeking out their windows. Everyone knew the truth now. Karen wasn't a hero. She was a sneaky thief who'd been caught red-handed. Officer Daniels just shook his head, still smiling, as Lopez led her to the police car. Jake stood on his porch, watching it all. Karen kept shouting as they opened the car door. "Standards," she screamed. "I'm all about standards." But the cops didn't care. They helped her into the back seat, and her yells got quieter when the door shut. The red and blue lights flashed one more time as the car pulled away, taking Karen off to face her mess. Jake waved a little, feeling like he'd just won something big without even trying. Later that day, something cool happened. The real HOA board, the people who actually ran things, showed up at Jake's door. There were 3 of them, all smiling, and they didn't look mad at all. Jake opened the door, still holding his coffee mug, empty again. "Hi, Jake," one lady said. "We're not here to complain. We're here to say thanks." Jake blinked. "Thanks? For what?" he asked. The man next to her nodded. "Your shiny numbers," he said. "They helped us catch Karen. She's been making up fake rules and taking people's money for years. When she called the cops on you, it gave us the proof we needed to stop her." Jake's mouth fell open. His mailbox, those sparkly silver numbers, had busted Karen's whole sneaky plan wide open. He didn't mean to be a hero, but he was one anyway. By the time the sun went down, the neighborhood was buzzing like a beehive. People were talking everywhere, on their porches, in their yards, even on the phone. Word spread fast, Karen was gone, and her scams were done. Neighbors who'd paid her fake fines like $20 for a too tall bush or $50 for a wrong color fence were getting their money back. They were happy, laughing, and saying things like, "Good riddance." And Jake? He got the best news of all. The HOA board told him, "Keep your numbers. They're fine. No rules against them." He grinned big. Those shiny digits could stay right where they were, sparkling in the sun. Best of all, Karen's reign of terror, the days of her bossing everyone around, was over. Finished. Done. The neighborhood felt lighter, like a big grumpy cloud had floated away. Jake sat on his porch that night, finally sipping real coffee, and smiled at his mailbox. Justice was served, and it felt great. Wow, what a wild ride, huh? So, there you have it. Sometimes the person yelling the loudest is hiding the biggest secrets. Think about it. Karen was shouting and pointing fingers, acting like she was the boss of everything. But really, she was the one doing sneaky, bad stuff. And Jake? He was just a regular guy who wanted cool house numbers. He didn't plan to be a hero. He didn't even try. But those shiny numbers ended up taking down a neighborhood bully without him even knowing it at first. Pretty amazing, right? It makes you wonder. The quiet ones or even the shiny ones can surprise you. Jake didn't talk big or fight back hard. He just put up his numbers and lived his life. But that little thing changed everything. Karen thought she could boss him around, but she was wrong. She was the one who got caught. It's funny how that works. Sometimes, the people who seem small or simple end up being the strongest. And the loud ones? They might just be scared of getting found out. This story sticks with you, doesn't it? Next time someone's giving you a hard time over something silly like your shoes are too bright or your backpack's too loud, maybe stop and think. Why are they so mad? Are they hiding something? Maybe they're the ones who should watch out, not you. You never know what's really going on behind all that noise. People can act big, but that doesn't mean they're right. Jake showed us that. His little mailbox beat Karen's big yells. What about you? Did this twist surprise you? I bet you didn't see it coming. Karen seemed like just a grumpy neighbor at first, but she had a whole sneaky plan going on. Could you have guessed her secret? Drop a comment below and tell me what you think. I'd love to hear your ideas. Did you think she was bad from the start, or did the big reveal shock you like it shocked Jake? This story's got a cool lesson too. You don't have to be loud or pushy to win. You can just be yourself like Jake and still come out on top. It's kind of inspiring, right? Maybe we can all be a little like Jake. Do what we like, keep it simple, and let the truth figure itself out. The bad guys like Karen can't hide forever. Sooner or later, they trip over their own mess. And when they do, it feels so good to see it happen. So, that's it for this tale, friends. I hope you had fun hearing about Jake and his shiny numbers. Stick around, because there's more stories coming your way. What crazy thing will happen next? You'll have to wait and see. Keep being awesome, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.